Good morning and welcome to the Finance Committee. For the record, note that members of the committee, Alderwoman Tierney and Alderwoman O'Neill are present, and Alderman Arnett, I think is the only other alderman, a plethora of department heads, and our city manager and our finance director. Welcome, and roll call done. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written, if there aren't any amendments.
So moved.
Madam Chair?
Moved and seconded, Alderwoman Tierney?
Yeah, I have one correction on committee discussions. Can that be removed? Because I believe that's being discussed in 2 general discussion. If it is the update from our finance director. ID 3-22. There's nothing attached.
That ID was requested by Alderwoman Finlayson. So
yes.
It is different from the general discussion.
I had Alderwoman Dickinson, or Alderman, City Finance Director Dickinson.
Yes. No, yeah, so when I asked you in the email what you were referring to, and you told me it was the update that I had given to the FAC, which is just the equivalent of the update that I give to the Finance Committee. So I think we have this on here twice.
Okay.
You wanted to make sure it got onto the agenda for the Finance Committee, and it typically is called the update from the Finance Director.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the same information was shared with the Council Committee as was shared with the FAC last week. So we should remove the item labeled ID 322. Is that the one we should be removing, Alderwoman Tierney?
Yes,
Is that
please.
what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, Alderwoman O'Neill, would you amend your motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Yes, amended.
I second that. I second that motion.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. First item of business is the election of the chair pursuant to Code 216-120. I'll entertain a motion. Somebody.
Sorry. I was making sure I was not on mute. I make a motion to elect Ellie Tierney as chair.
Okay. Ellie, you can second that. I know it's about you, but.
Oh, okay. I'll second that.
Okay. Further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So Alderwoman Tierney, I gladly turn the Finance Committee over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, let's get to it. The next item on the agenda are appointments and reappointments. They are all for the Finance Advisory Commission. I believe Hillary may be here to speak as needed. I'll bring up the first item, which is the appointment. This is a new appointment of Perry Hepworth to the Finance Advisory Commission. I hope my colleagues have had time to read his resume. I'll open it up to any discussion.
Is he with us this morning?
Not that I'm aware of.
I will make the motion to recommend and open it up to discussion.
I second that motion.
And this is not just about
the first appointment is here. They're pulling them.
Mr. Hepworth is here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Harry, would you like to say a few words?
I was out of the room and then back in the room. So the last thing I heard was if I wanted to add a few words, and thank you for the opportunity. I may have a bit of an update that could be important. Since I applied or submitted the application for the position, I have moved about 2 miles, and that may cause a concern or an issue, not sure. Technically, I am in Edgewater, although still north of the South River, in Gingerville Woods. I bought a home. I was living previously in the apartment complex in Town Center, where I am currently at and in my workplace. So I don't know if that would be a factor or not. But good morning and thank you.
I can't open up my code screen as fast as Hillary. Is there an issue there?
I can address that. No, the Financial Advisory Commission does not require city residents. Mr. Hepworth was actually not a resident even at Town Center, which is outside of city limits. So
Okay.
that's not a requirement. It's up to you whether it's something that you're seeking.
Okay. Can I ask for a vote?
I would like to ask him a question, if I may.
Yep.
Mr. Hepworth, why do you have an interest in the Financial Advisory Commission? Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to this commission.
Sure. Thank you, Alderwoman Finlayson. Again, my name is Barry Hepworth. I'm a certified financial planner and been living now in the Annapolis area about six years, but broken up. Previously, I'm from out west, but was in the Navy for about 10 years. And my last duty station was at the Naval Academy as an instructor. Prior to leaving the Navy, then I left the Navy, joined Fidelity Investments, got an MBA at University of Maryland, and then I've re-moved back to Annapolis in December of 2019 to assume the position as the branch leader manager here at the Fidelity Investments office. Always wanted to get more civically involved and looking for opportunities for boards and commissions, and the opportunity arose. The Financial Advisory Committee made sense given my background. Again, my undergraduate is in economics, got a master's of business association at the University of Maryland. And like I said, I'm a certified financial planner, managing with other, I guess, the FINRA licenses. So it makes kind of sense from that background, but really was just looking for a way to serve and to get involved in more community opportunities. In addition to that, I'm also a part of the Leadership Anne Arundel flagship class of this year. So again, just looking for ways to get involved in becoming a more permanent member of this community.
Well, thank you, and congratulations on leadership. I'm a class of 98. I hate to say that.
I'm finding that the alumni is widespread and all over. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a good group of which you should be a part. One other question. Does your company do any business with the city?
I do not believe so, no. So we're specifically the Fidelity Investments office here, this branch location is more of a retail. So working with individuals, families, and their personal accounts. Unless, the city has accounts here, which I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily be privy to that, even if it were. I mean, I would have to research that, but no, I do not believe so.
Thank you. Well, thank you for volunteering to serve.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I apologize. I didn't mean to expedite. I'm just so impressed by his resume. So it's stellar. Alderwoman O'Neill, did you have a question?
I do not have any questions.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alderwoman, I will make the motion that we give a favorable recommendation to Mr. Hepworth for the Financial Advisory Commission.
A second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Perry, and thank you for your volunteer work in Chile. And are you still running triathlons?
Well, I'm trying to, certainly. Another bit of news update. I had a baby daughter born 2 weeks ago yesterday. So that's taking a little bit more of my personal time in addition to moving and building the house. But the last one I think I did was Escape from Alcatraz, which was fantastic.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, the next, just a little bit of housekeeping here. We have a lot of supplementary appropriations to approve, but this is really important, the appointments, but I just want you to be cognizant that we do have a 2-hour window of time, and we must get through those supplementary appropriations. But again, this is very important. Number 2, the agenda on the agenda is the reappointment of Bob Burton to the FAC. Can I entertain a motion to recommend him to the Finance Advisory Commission? It is a reappointment, as we all know.
I will make that motion. Mr. Burden has been with us since the inception, so I will gladly make a favorable recommendation to the reappointment of Bob Burden to the FAC.
I will second that.
Okay, all in favor for this reappointment, say aye.
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 Is Mr. Burden with us? I'd hate for him to be waiting and then.
I'm here to speak on behalf of the reappointment.
Okay.
Okay. Did you want to say anything, Hillary? I apologize.
Oh, no, not at all. All of the members that are up for reappointment have served for some, well, 2 of them, I think since the inception, Mr. Sussman and Mr. Burden. Mr. Neehan was appointed in 2019 and Mr. Brown actually in 2012 as well. So they're all long-standing members. They all have the necessary work in finance that qualifies them for this board, and they were all recommended by the chair.
We'll still go through them individually. Next on the agenda is the reappointment of Frank Brown.
Do we want to vote on Mr. Burden? There was a motion on the floor.
Oh, I thought we did by saying aye.
You guys voted.
I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't realize we had voted for Mr. Burden.
Yes. The next item is the reappointment of Frank Brown to the FAC. Can I entertain a motion to recommend him for reappointment?
I will recommend reappointment of Frank Brown to the FAC.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is AP 12-22, the reappointment of Edward Neehan to the Finance Advisory Commission. Could I entertain a motion to recommend his reappointment?
I'll make the motion to recommend his reappointment.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Share the wealth.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is the reappointment of Frederick Sussman to the Financial Advisory Commission. Could I entertain a motion to recommend reappointment of Frederick Sussman to the FAC?
I'll make that motion to reappoint Mr. Sussman. He's one of the founding members of the FAC.
Yeah. I'll second that. All in favor by signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, the next one is a new appointment, Patrick Bannon to the Financial Advisory Commission. Is Patrick on here? I don't see him.
He's here.
Yay, okay.
Yes.
Hello, hi, Patrick. Thank you for being here. First, let me just make the motion to get discussion on the table. Can I have a motion to recommend Patrick Bannon for appointment to the Financial Advisory Commission, and then we can open it up for discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Patrick, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I lived in Annapolis for the last 28 years. Prior to that, I grew up in Montgomery County, Maryland. I went to Frostburg, so all Maryland. Graduated with an accounting degree, business minor. Got my master's at University of Maryland, University College. Worked for the federal government for 40 years as a federal auditor. Last 25 as with the Inspector General at HUD. So I'm familiar with some of the housing programs, some of the block grant programs, even some of the, I was involved a lot with the disaster grants, which were New Orleans and then Sandy. And so if that would come in handy with any of our problems with the city dock and so forth. Hopefully I could add some value to the committee. And Susie Smith, my neighbor, recommended me for this spot. So I thought it was a good opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. May I open it up to questions?
I'll go. Mr. Bannon, my standard question is why the Finance Advisory Commission? Are you familiar with what they do and the impact that they have, particularly on our budget? And why this group?
That's sort of my background. As a federal auditor, we were looking for fraud, waste, and abuse. So I think that's a good background to make sure that we're using all the funds wisely that we get. So, and that's somewhat of an interest to me, following the numbers.
Thank you.
Alderwoman O'Neill, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. I'll just make a comment that, again, your resume is stellar. And, you know, I love the fact that you coached at Key School. Yeah, that's
I had a winning record and then COVID hit and
I know.
off the radar.
Yeah, and your disaster relief effort is amazing. I'm sure our city manager is just in awe of that as well. So can I entertain a motion to, can I have a motion to vote favorably on his recommendation, Patrick Bannon, on the Finance Advisory Commission? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
There is a motion on the floor. That's what we're voting on, correct?
Right. Yeah, so we'll second that and then vote. Did I get a second? I got a second.
I think, is Ms. Green on? I think we have a second. I think we're ready for the vote. I
Yes,
think.
you're ready for the vote.
Ms. Green, for clarification, to open it up to discussion, do I have to introduce it first on, introduce it on the floor, or do we go right into discussion for appointments?
In standing committees, you guys do it both ways.
Oh,
So
we do it both ways, okay.
we may have to figure
All right.
that out, but you have a first and a second already, so. And then you guys did discussion.
Yes.
Now you're ready for the vote.
We did discussion and then I'll go right to vote. Yeah, okay. So could I, could I have, let's see, could I,
All in favor?
yeah, it is hard to go right to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye on a favorable recommendation for Patrick Bannon to the FAC.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Now,
Alderwoman Tierney, Chairwoman Tierney,
yes.
we should make the candidates aware that their nominations will come before the full council at Monday's meeting, and that they do not have to be present for that action to be taken.
Good point. Thank you for that, Alderwoman Finlayson. And thank you, Hillary, for giving us these wonderful candidates. Okay, so we have supplementary appropriations that have been, I know, because of our break, et cetera, have been waiting. If you had time to review these, a lot of them are grant funded, but we're going to go over each one individually. And Ms. Dickinson, I assume you'll do a quick synopsis. So First one is 9-22, Rex and Parks, Maryland DNR grant. Could I entertain a motion for discussion?
I'll move approval of SA 922.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion, Jody? Could you-
Yeah, I'll give you a quick update. We have a $5,000 grant from Maryland DNR. It's going to be used to purchase lumber and hardware to redeck 5 public floating dinghy docks. And I believe Beth Bellis is here if you have any specific questions about those improvements.
Who was responsible for securing the grant?
The harbor master, Rec and Parks.
I just want to say congratulations. Could I, go ahead.
I do have a question. Is this 5,000 the total amount needed to build 5 floating dinghy docks? Or is it a supplement to additional previous funds that we received?
I'll refer that question to Ms. Bellis.
She is here. Ms. Beth?
I saw her deputy also. Maybe she stepped away. Maybe he can answer it. Mr. Northfield?
There's Ms. Bellis.
I saw our Director Trader also. Okay.
I'm sorry, I was having a little difficulty. Can you repeat the question?
My question was, is this 5,000 the total needed to rebuild 5 dinghy docks or dinghy docks, floating dinghy docks? Or is this additional funding for previously received funds for that same purpose?
It's for general maintenance and repair of street end docks. And so this is the first time we've applied for one of these, and it's our intention to routinely apply for these so that we can keep all of our street ends in good repair. So it's not for a major project, it's just general upkeep, replacing boards and so on and so forth, fixing a cleat that may have come off.
And so this is sufficient to do 5 of these dinghy docks?
Yes, just the decking, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so all those in favor of the motion to approve SA 9-22, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, SA 10-22, Department is Planning and Zoning, the law firm of Liff, Walsh and Simmons. It is I believe it is for a traffic study, if I'm not mistaken, for the Primrose School. I'm not clear whether or not that's some sort of a donation. Jody, can you elaborate? Oh, first, let me put it on the floor. Could I have a motion?
Motion to approve SA 10-22.
I'll second. Okay, thank you. Jody, could you give us a synopsis of that?
This is the funding to do the traffic study. When we do studies that are beyond what we would normally do, we ask the developers to contribute to the cost of the study. And then I would ask Planning and Zoning to give us more detail if anybody's on from that department.
Okay, maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it isn't a law firm. That's
well, they may be involved. They may be involved in the development in some way. I don't know what the firm is, Liff, Walsh and Simmons, but they're doing it on behalf of Primrose School.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I do have a question.
Yes.
This is a very low amount for a traffic study. So is this, it says supplemental allocation of 1,700. So did we have a previous allocation to them? Because usually I thought they're about 26,000.
I'm going to have to defer that question to Planning and Zoning because I don't know what the extent of the study is we would do normally when looking at the development. and if this is just money to supplement what we're doing, or if it's just a small study that needs to be done and is that only costs $1,700.
Mhm. Is there anyone here to explain the words additional work? That's what it says in the explanation, that this is additional work.
We don't
Is
have
there
anyone
anyone
from planning and zoning on.
Yeah, I think Director Johnson's on. So that's been a very complex traffic situation because it's right there at Hilltop and Spa. So it's a very complicated intersection. So they've had to look at a lot of different options, right in, right out, left turn options. So, and again, I'm not as familiar as planning and zoning would be, but I think that there was probably additional traffic engineering services because of the complexity of that intersection, the complexity to get in and out of that site.
May I ask, David, could you be a little more specific, with which site? You said Hilltop and Spa?
Yeah, so it's across the street from the synagogue there.
Okay.
So it's that vacant area that's right on that corner.
Yeah. Okay. So that's future development site. Okay.
It is. Yeah.
I think Katie had her hand up to help us.
Yes, Ms. Connolly.
Thank you. I just wanted
Sorry,
to add in 21, fiscal year 21, a supplemental was approved for $13,000 for a traffic study for Primrose. So just for reference.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That was my colleague's question. Thank you very much. So could I ask for all of those in favor for approving SA 11-22 with a show of hands signifying aye?
SA 10.
Oh, SA 10-22, yes.
Yes. Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, next is SA 11-22, which is another a grant as the source of revenue, which is MDOT, the Maryland Department of Transportation. This is in addition to their other grant, which is a significant source of revenue for our transit department. Is acting director is Kwaku here?
Dr.
Yes.
Dua is on.
He is on.
Yes.
Yes, I'm on.
Thank you. Dr. Dua, could you just give us a synopsis of this supplemental allocation?
Sure. Typically, we do apply for grants, both for operating and capital. So it's generally based upon trends. We do request an amount of money. Occasionally, the state may have additional revenues. And when that happens, they look at your usage of grants. We use everything that we get every year for operating. They also look at your compliance status, that you are in good standing both at the federal and the state level. And based upon that, MTA will make a determination as to how much you get or who gets that. So this came on top of whatever that we did request.
May I ask what transit large urban operating means?
Transit large urban operating is it's for the fixed route service.
Oh,
as you know, we have the ADA, which is the Complementary Transit Service. That has a different grant. Large urban general refers to your fixed route service.
Oh, so it's a fancy word for fixed route service. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Dua. Are there any more questions? Okay, we're going to do this differently, and I'll make the motion now instead of fumbling over the vote. Could I entertain a motion for a favorable recommendation of SA 11-22?
I'll move favorably SA 11-22.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All righty. The next one is SA 12-23, 22, the grant fund is Office of OEM, the ACE in securing grants for sure. This is a federal grant in the amount of $20,729. I believe I have Director Simmons here to give us a quick synopsis of this grant. Director Simmons.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations on your appointment as Finance Committee Chairperson, Madam.
Thank you so much.
So this grant has two purposes. The first is to fund the salary of a COVID logistic officer position. And what they do is they inventory resources and supplies related to the pandemic response. They pick up and make deliveries of these supplies. And the position is also going to be used to upstaff COVID-related activities such as food drives, test kits giveaways, and VAX clinics. So this position will probably be in existence until June 30th, 2022. The second thing that this grant does, $10,728.97 of it will go to a supply account for COVID-related resources and supplies. So all of this grant here, the 20-some thousand, is going to be COVID-related activity.
Thank you very much. I do have a question, and it's probably just wordsmith here. What does it mean is there is 100% match, which I understand that will be satisfied by using OEM personnel salaries. I'm
sorry, I didn't mention that part. So the grant requires 100% soft match from the city. And Alderwoman Finlayson knows from her time in the public safety what a soft match is. That means that my particular salary will be the city's donation of a match for this particular grant. They're going to use my salary. So that is the soft match.
Got it. Thank you so much for that explanation. Are there any questions?
I do have a question, but it's probably not directly related to this grant, but it does relate to the supply chain. What went live today, and I think it went live prior to today, was the ability for any household to get test kits through the U.S. Postal Service. Does that impact our supply chain? Are we tied in any way to, I've been sending notices out by Facebook since the weekend. Is this person helping to get that message out to the general community at large so that all Annapolis households can take advantage of it?
So that particular task would go to our exercise training and outreach person, Nicole Rybert. So we have actually have some of my staff apply for the federal home test kits as well as the postal home test kits, and we're trying to gauge how fast those kits gets to the public by my staff actually applying for them. So we don't know. We understand sometime at the end of January, this stuff is going to be shipped out. So we're just kind of standing by. In the meantime, we're trying to access home test kits to be able to give to the Annapolis public.
And I did apply yesterday, and they told me 5 to 7 days. So I'll let you know when I receive mine.
Okay.
What about the update on masks? Are we doing anything differently since now they're saying no cloth mask, and that we should all be pursuing the N95 or the KN95 mask?
So your best level of protection is the KN95 or the 95. They're not saying don't use a cloth mask. You still can. What we recommend, if you still want to go with the cloth mask, that you double up. So you actually take I did have one here, but you take a surgical mask similar to this, put that on first, and then put your cloth mask over top of it. It gives you double protection. So you can still use a cloth mask, but I would double up. it's best to use N95.
So are we distributing them, or are we able to get a huge allocation of those masks to distribute?
So we're looking into getting a huge allocation for that. We're at this time, we're trying to make sure that all the employees have N95 masks, and we're looking for avenues of where we can get it out to the public. And I understand the federal government is actually going to send out a big cache of masks, and we'll keep an eye on that and make sure that Annapolitans get their fair share, as we always do.
Well, please don't forget to use the aldermen as we have in the past, because we've distributed shields and masks and hand sanitizer, and we'd be glad to, I'm speaking for everybody now, but I think everyone would appreciate helping in this, you know.
And you guys do a great job, and I thank you for that.
So thank you.
To Alderwoman Finlayson's point, this morning it was reported, and I know this is a segue from the appropriation, but the Biden administration is making 400 million non-surgical N95 masks available free of charge at, quote, community health centers and retail pharmacies across the United States. Are you able to obtain those under this distribution, Director Simmons?
I am not sure. I want to speak to the health department, because I think the health department might be my conduit to get those masks. So that's a conversation that I need to have with Dr. Kalyana Raman and his staff. And I understand he's coming before you, the council body, next month. But by next month, I'm hoping that I'll have a source of KN95 masks to channel out to the community.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve, to recommend favorably on SA 12-22.
Make that motion.
I'll second it. Do we not have a motion on the floor? I'll second it.
I'm switching it, Alderman Finlayson. Okay, could I have, all in favor of a positive recommendation for SA 12-22, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. The next is SA 13-22, another grant secured by our Office of Emergency Management. Director Simmons, could you care to provide a synopsis of this?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
So this is a $40,000 additional adjustment to our 2021 State Homeland Security Grant Program, which we had about 270 some odd thousand. So this is an additional 40,000 to that grant. So this $40,000 adjustment will be used to pay the salary of the Regional Incident Management Team Coordinator, who reports to the City of Annapolis Director of Emergency Management, me. So what does that person do? The Incident Management Team Coordinator trains and leads the response of various individuals who are specially trained to manage complex and escalating emergency incidents and special events. So the City of Annapolis Fire Department and OEM has staff who are trained and are on the incident management team. And just another point of history, I was the incident management team coordinator right before I came to the City of Annapolis. So that's for that salary.
Okay, and there is no match required.
There is no match, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any, Alderwoman O'Neill?
So according to this, it's the performance period from September 21 to April 2024. So there's currently a person in that position, and this is an extension of their salary for that?
Yes, I think that person's been in that position for 3 to 4 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. With that, thank you, Alderwoman O'Neill. With that, could I entertain a motion to recommend favorably SA 13-22?
So moved.
I'll second that. All in favor of a favorable recommendation of SA 13-22, signify by saying yay.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. I know it's Robert's rules gone bad here. Don't worry. You're in good hands. Okay, next is SA 14-22. This is the fire department in the amount of $12,038. I see that we have Chief O'Malley here. If he could provide us with a synopsis of this grant securement.
This is a yearly grant that we get. It comes through the state, from the state, filtered through the county to us. And when we were doing our budget this year, we got a little more than we got a little more than we actually put in our budget for the grant. So this just allows finance to add that additional $12,000. 50% of this grant goes to the Eastport Volunteer Fire Company to make payment on their fire engine. It's a 100% grant, so there's no cost to the city, and it gets filtered to the volunteers partially.
Yes, I saw that it does provide supplies, and then you mentioned ambulance service, but this has nothing to do with with the increase that you're experienced due to COVID of ambulance services.
No, this grant is not related to that. This
Nothing
is
to that.
grant. Yes.
No. Right. Okay. All right. Are there any questions from my colleagues?
I do have a question for the chief. You mentioned the volunteer fire service and their ambulance payment. How do we give them an annual stipend for the cost of the ambulance, or a monthly, or whatever we get supplemental allocations? How does that work?
So this grant is not for the ambulance payment. This grant specifically comes down, and 50% of the grant has to go to assist the volunteer companies. They have purchased a fire engine, and 45,000 of this grant. This 12,000 is added to the original amount we got. So that goes towards their payment of the engine. As for the ambulance money, we do have an agreement with the Eastport Volunteer Fire Company, who actually owns one of the medic units, and we pay them $15,000 a year. That it's a flat fee for using their unit, which saved the city $350,000 not having to buy a medic unit.
Mm-hmm.
That comes out of the annual budget.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Any further questions?
Do we have a motion on the floor?
No, I'm going to make the motion now. Could I?
I'll make the motion for you.
Okay, thank you. Go for it.
To give a favorable recommendation to SA 1422.
I'll second.
All in favor of a favorable recommendation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next one is SA 15-22 is a memorial donation. Is Director Trader? Yes, I do see that he's here. Could he speak to this, please? Director Trader?
Yes, I'm here. But could you repeat that, please?
Yes, I just wanted your synopsis on this grant made by David Nagy, if I say it correctly, to the Stanton Center, SA 15-22. It's a donation of $1,000 to the Stanton Center.
Yes, that particular donation would have to be to the Friends of the Stanton Community Center programs. We have no processes by which we can accept that as a donation to our operating budget.
I'm not clear on that. So this is the mechanism then to appropriate it? Jody, Director Dickinson?
So what we have in hand, $1,000 from this individual,
Yes.
in remembrance of Mrs. Clary Dion. and we don't have any appropriations to spend it. So this supplemental would give that donation to the city and the city the authority to spend it for something. Now, if the donor is concerned about the nonprofit status and being able to claim this as a donation for tax purposes, we do not fit that. We do not have that capability. So they would have to make it to an organization that does have that status. So if that's the case and they want that and it needs to go to the Friends of the Stanton Center, then we need to give the money back. So I don't know what the status of that arrangement is, but we do have the money in hand.
And that's simply because the Stanton Center is a government-run property. It's not a nonprofit.
We don't have a 501c3 status that would allow it to be tax deductible.
Let's see.
And is the Friends of the Stanton Center not a 501c3?
Yes, they are in the process of applying for it.
So they don't yet have their 501c3 status.
It's not confirmed at this point, but all of their donations go to the Annapolis Community Foundation, which have created an account for them.
I'm not clear on what that is, Director Dickinson.
The Annapolis Community Foundation is a 501c3 organization.
Under the city of Annapolis?
No,
State of Maryland.
they're autonomous.
Okay. How many nonprofits do we have? I'm sorry. How many nonprofits do we currently have under the city, Director Dickinson?
I'm sorry, we don't. Say that again. We don't have any. We don't have any organizations under the city's control that have a 501c3 status.
So is this Friends of Stanton Center proposed 501c3 with the state?
It's not with the state. I think it's a small separate organization and they're trying to form and trying to get their status from the IRS. So
Alderwoman Finlayson?
The Community Foundation is an organization, a nonprofit, where smaller organizations can put their funding and take advantage of their 501c3.
1c3. So the Community Foundation could get this $1,000, or the Friends of the Stanton Center could get this $1,000. But right now it's in our coffers. So we need to, if it's going to go to another organization and this person wants it to go to another organization for tax exempt purposes, then we need to give it back to them so they can make the donation to somebody else.
And let me also say, Chairperson Tierney, that I spoke to the husband of the deceased personally and gave him specific instructions that all donations on behalf of her in her name must go to the Stanton Community Center, Friends of the Stanton Community Center youth programs. I spoke to him personally. That's the reason why the finance department only has one check, and that somehow slipped through.
Yeah, to that point, I do want to make sure that this $1,000 is, I mean, I would feel comfortable if it is earmarked, for lack of a better word, to the Stanton Center. And I'm not sure if this is the correct vehicle to do that, but I don't want to stop it. Director?
Well, may I?
Yeah. I think Alderwoman O'Neill had her hand up first.
Can we make a motion for either Jody or Dr. Trader to go back to this donor, David Nagy, and ask him which direction he wants, in either returning him the money and directing him to the Friends of the Stanton Center or the Community Foundation, or to go ahead and then move forward if he doesn't care about the tax implication?
But before we do that, the Friends of Stanton Center, I understand, is in the process of being a 501c3. So I'm not sure if that can be done. So it could go directly to the community foundation, I suggest. Let me ask this question. The 501c3 proposed for the Friends of the Stanton Center, will that be under the Annapolis Community Foundation or separate?
Can you repeat that, please?
The question was the 501c3 proposed for the Friends of the Stanton Center, will that be under the Annapolis Community Foundation nonprofit?
No, it will not. The 501c3 application is actually a federal government application for 501c3 status. So the Friends of the Stanton Community Center Youth Programs is applying for it autonomously to the federal government. The Annapolis Community Foundation is a temporary way of getting the money and putting it into their accounts. The Annapolis Community Foundation creates an account for the Friends of the Stanton Community Center Youth Programs, and that's the way that's working right now.
Alderwoman O'Neill, would you like to revise your motion?
Well, I can add to it because I have been with an organization in the past where we were applying for the nonprofit status. And that can take, depending on where they are in the process, it can take anywhere from 3 to 12 months. Right. Because there are certain documents and legal aspects to applying for that. I would like to go back to say, I believe that we need to reach back out to this donor and let them know that if they want the tax break, the best option is to write the check to the Community Foundation. If they don't care about the tax break, then we can revisit this at our next meeting and just appropriate the funds to the Stanton Center.
Okay, I just want clarification from the director, not to get minute here, but the supplementary allocation goes into the general fund? Or?
Yes, it would just go into the general fund and be added to the Stanton Center's budget. But if okay. I think Alderwoman O'Neill's suggestion is what we need to do, find out from the donor, Mr. Nagy, if he wants that to go directly, if they care about the tax consequences of it, we need to give the money back to him, and he needs to make a donation to the organization that he wants it to go to. If they don't care about the tax implications, we can just pass the money along either to the Friends of the Stanton Center and give them the funding when they're formed, or we can fund the programs ourselves through the Stanton Center budget.
Okay. Before we make a motion, Alderwoman Finlayson, you had your hand up.
Well, I'd support Alderwoman O'Neill's motion to send this back to the contributor to see how he wants it handled.
I will be glad to contact him and ask him what he wants, how he wants to handle this.
Yeah.
And maybe he wants it to go to the Community Foundation, in which case we write him a check, back, and he can do with it as he sees fit. But
and in that case, we don't need a supplemental appropriation. We would just give the money back to him.
Right. So what is your recommendation on this essay right now? Should we take action on it, or should we wait to get the results?
I would wait. I would hold it. I would hold it until we know what their intentions and their needs are, and then decide if we need to keep it and add it to Stanton Center's budget. We'll get a supplemental appropriation. We'll propose this at a later date.
So, Madam Chair, I would support, I think, Alderwoman O'Neill's recommendation to postpone action on this essay until the finance director has an opportunity, and our Director Trader have an opportunity to have the discussion with the contributor to see in which direction he would like to go.
If I may,
so that's the motion.
If I may, Chairperson, if I could give a little bit of background to the origin of the and the genesis of the Annapolis, the Stanton Community Center Youth Programs, Friends of. These monies are designed to go directly to the children. There's no way that money going into the general fund can affect the actual programs and children at the community center, at the Stanton Community Center. That's why the Friends of the Stanton Center Youth Programs was actually designed. So when people donate, and I've been in this world for quite a long time now, they want to know exactly where their money is going. So I think we have the perfect setup, and once they get their 501c3 status, it would be even better to actually, accept this money on a 501c3 donation basis, so that money can affect the programs and children directly.
Director Trader, could you give us an estimate on when the 501c3 for the Friends of Stanton Center would be established?
I can find that out for you and get that information back to you. I will contact the actual directors of that movement and get that information back to you immediately. Okay. I'll find out exactly what their status is and how far they need to go.
Thank you. And there is a motion on the floor, and I'll second that with and Director Dickinson, please express our sympathy for his loss in your discussion. Can I
discussion?
Still, yes, Alderman Finlayson.
To address Director Trader's concerns, our action is not to impede funding going to the designated source. We just want to make sure that if the contributor wants a tax-deductible contribution, that he gets it. And if he's not concerned about that, then we can make sure the funds go directly into where it's intended anyway. So this is for clarification. This is by no way attempting to send the money someplace other than where it was intended. So I just wanted clarification.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think otherwise, Alderwoman Finlayson. I was just trying to give you an idea of the mindset of the donors.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I appreciate that. And like Alderwoman O'Neill, I too created a 501c3 a year or so ago. And there is you can't say how long it's going to take because it's the state and it's the feds that grant the 501c3. So you don't know whether it's going to come in a couple of months or a year even. So, but we wish them the very best and hope that it comes sooner rather than later, because that will benefit everyone. So there's a motion on the floor. I'm calling the question.
Okay, I'll ask for a vote for a favorable, a postponement of our consideration for SA 15-22. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, postponement granted. The next is Public Works. This is a good one. SA 16-22, Capital Project Fund, FEMA grant. I believe we have Director Johnson here to talk about this, what I understand as additional money.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
And congratulations on your recent appointment.
Thank you.
This is part of the City Dock flood mitigation grant that FEMA awarded to the city. And really this supplemental appropriation is the shift in the federal share of that grant. The grant amount does not change. It still remains about $6.1 million, but the federal share is increased by $389,274 almost. And it would reduce the non-federal share by a corresponding amount. So it appears to be just like a journal change or something like that. It doesn't change the bottom line of the grant.
Thank you.
Just the split would change.
Okay, I knew it was too good to be true. I thought it was additional. I thought it was additional.
I think I'd like some clarification on this, because if this means that we don't need to increase the overall budget of the capital project, and that we just switch it from one funding source to another, we don't need a supplemental appropriation. I was under the impression that the project needs additional funds based on the cost estimates, and that we were seeking these extra monies so that we could fund some of those extra costs. So the question is, do we need to add to the total of the capital project?
We may, because the pricing of materials has sort of skyrocketed a bit. So the estimates that we've received from the engineers and are a little higher than were expected. So I wouldn't, at this point, I wouldn't say that we may not need money. We haven't gone to bid yet, so we haven't actually received a firm estimate on what, a contractor's estimate on what it will cost to build it. We're just working out the engineer's estimate at this point. And I think, you know, it probably is prudent to keep that as somewhat of a cushion, because we don't quite know how it will shake out once we actually take bids.
I don't think we want to do that unless we have a revenue source. But I'll
So the project already has other revenue sources in it, and
it does,
one of them,
yes.
It would have we have bonds allocated to it, and those bonds have already been allocated to it. So unless you wanted to reduce the bonds that are going there, we could leave that intact and just add this extra federal money to the project.
Yeah, I think the city, from what I'm looking at, the city funding was $4.5 million. If I'm just looking at the breakout, so I'm assuming that the match, the non-federal match, could come from that or from the state funding of $6.4 million. So somewhere in there, you know, I'm saying that we should probably still keep, at least that'd be my preference, to still keep, you know, that figure, even though the federal the FEMA contribution has been increased. The federal contribution has been increased. For the reasons that
I do want Director Simmons to weigh in on this, because I thought that they were responsible for the FEMA grant on this project, if I'm not mistaken. Director Simmons, could you?
This is a pretty important grant to me, because it was 6 years in the making. And I'm glad Dave popped on here, because I want Dave to actually talk about it. Dave has a great story that when he started off and we applied for this grant, his son was not even a year old. By the time we got the grant, his son was 6 years old in school. So that's, and it took a lot of twists and turns. It was a long odyssey. At some point, we thought that this was a hopeless cause. Dave stuck in there with it, and nobody knows this grant like him, and I just want him to kind of weigh in on the grant. So Dave, a couple words from you.
Thanks, Director. Yeah, it was funny. As we hit these bumps in the road, I'd say, FEMA, my son's in, you know, pre-K. FEMA, my son's in kindergarten. He's as old as this project, and now my son is in first grade, and we finally got it. So it's just a personal story that I think of. Okay, so the way this started out was $3 million federal share, and this is tied to the 2016 Jonas snowstorm that we probably all remember. And the way it works is they give the state a certain amount of funding, a percentage of which was spent on that storm. And so they initially allocated us $3 million. This took so long to get approved that other projects started and finished while we were still trying to get ours approved. And I think we're the last one. And everyone wanted to spend all the money that was left in this pot of, you know, hazard mitigation grant funding. And so they actually agreed to give us an additional $389,000, because that's what's left unspent by all the other grants in this particular project for that disaster. So that's why the supplemental appropriation is here. We actually, instead of the $3 million, it's now $3,389,271. So that was able to reduce the city share by the increase in the federal share. So the bottom line is that it is an additional $389,000 that we are seeking approval to be appropriated today. And that's why, it's because it took so long that they had extra money that was unspent that they now made available to us, because nobody wants to see this money go back, obviously, the feds or the state.
Okay, so now I'm confused because I heard two different things. Is this an ad or is this a allocation? And I'm specifically looking at the capital budget director, Dickinson. Is it your understanding that the way we have it reported, this would not be an ad?
So if you have extra federal money coming in and it's reducing the amount that we need to provide from a local perspective. If the project was being funded just by the grant, we'd have to look at the overall cost. We've got enough. It is my understanding that this project needs more appropriation. That's one of the reasons for the 389. So although for this particular federal grant, we don't need to match as many with local funds, we would like the project to have an increase in the appropriation level so we can use it to pay for the additional cost. That's my understanding.
Okay.
If I could explain a little bit too. So this is a $12 million project.
Right.
$12 million. So 3.3 million is just a segment of the overall project cost. So this is the federal contribution. We've got state contribution, and the city's also going to put money towards the $12 million. This is the project that's on the Compromise Street side of City Dock to take care of flood mitigation on that side. So it's that deep well that's in the park behind the elementary school, and it's reconfiguration of the storm drains along Compromise. So this is just a sliver. I mean, it's a significant sliver, but it's 25% of the overall project cost. So there's a lot of other money to be made up. If this was a $5 million project and this was coming in, then that would displace some of the city money. But we need every dollar that we can get to cover the $12 million cost.
Has that project been recently estimated? Is that what you're referring to as the $12 million total cost?
It is, and it's going out for bids in the hopefully the very near future, yeah.
And that added cost is attributed to what, City Manager Jarrell?
Everything. So, I mean, materials, labor, everything has escalated for construction over the 6 years that Dave Mandel talked about since this project was first put together.
So this budget, upcoming budget cycle in the capital budget, we'll have it reported accurately, distributing the funding appropriately, federal, state, city. Okay.
Yes, the 3 million
Yes.
was accurately accounted for in the budget because we knew that was coming. But the 389 additional, that was a little bit of a surprise, a good surprise.
Okay.
Which is why we're going through this supplemental process now.
Okay.
Yes, and the immediate impact of this action is going to be to increase the overall appropriation for that project and increase the federal source designated on the page. When we come to you with the capital budget for next year, you may see increases to cost and some shifting in the sources, that kind of thing. You may see additional changes in that project. But this immediate action adds to the budget and adds to the federal sources.
Okay. Can I ask one more question? Is in the last budget, did we have it in as 12 million?
So that's what I'm opening the book because I don't have it right in front of me, the capital project page. And maybe Katie, I don't know, Katie has the project page in front of her. And this is not.
Jody, it's on that support that I gave you. If you go through that packet.
The page?
Yeah.
Okay, here, okay, I'm sorry, here it is. So the total cost of the project overall.
What page are you looking at in the capital budget?
Page 19 in your
Okay,
capital
so it's
budget book.
okay. So I wish it was named something differently because City Harbor flood mitigation is misleading. People think it might be City Dock, but anyways, we wish we could call it Compromise Street. But to that point,
So so the total project cost in the book now is 16 million. 4 million of that is in fiscal 23. So up through FY22, currently we have 12,161,000 in the project, and this will increase that by 389.
okay. I just to go from 4.5 million to 12 and then reported at 16. That's really concerning. Unless there's obvious scope changes and inflation and all that. But I mean, the project increased threefold.
4.5 million? Is that the original?
I thought that's what I heard.
No, so before 22,
yeah,
the total project cost was 9.5.
Okay.
We added 2.6 million to it in 22 because we got some additional grants. We added some bonds, and we have $4 million programmed in 23, and that's the Resilience Finance Authority funding that we're hoping to get through that organization.
No, wait a minute, I'm confused. Hold on. What is the project cost anticipated total now?
As of today, 16,161,000.
Okay. Is the resiliency, we don't have the Resiliency Authority set up yet, so I'm not sure what you're speaking of when you say
it's established. I don't know if it's completely staffed, and if they don't have any funding in the authority yet.
So it's anticipated that we might be able to get some contribution to this project from resiliency sources. I'm not sure what the Resiliency Authority.
I see the city manager is going to give his input on that. We don't know. We're seeking other grants as well. So
okay,
where this
I need to look at that project sheet because it sounds like that includes some of the costs for the other side, for the Dock Street side of the flood mitigation. So that is where we anticipate getting funding from the Resilience Financing Authorities for the city dock side.
Yeah, I mean, the history of this, I remember it was at one point one big project, and then we split it up. And so there's two, dry wells, one at the proposed city dock and one on Compromise Street. And so Compromise Street is separate. But I would feel a lot better if we had an estimate on this at this point, being several years now in the making, albeit through COVID.
Okay, so
well, we do have an estimate. We do have an estimate that ACOM just provided us with, and their recent estimate, I think, was around $13.5 million. That was what they estimated that it would cost. And it looks like we more or less have enough funding to cover that. There can be incidentals, possibly such as archaeological surveys and construction oversight that might need some additional funding. And as I mentioned, one of the unknowns with a project like this or with construction during this time is that costs are a lot higher, trending a lot higher than they normally would. So, if we do result with somewhat of a cushion, it is advisable, because we can't really say where the pricing of these services and materials are going to land in this particular odd conflicts, the period that we're in.
Yeah.
I will confirm that the $4 million that's in 23 is for the Dock Street side. So if you take that out of the equation, we have cost of $12,161,000 currently in the project. And that would increase by this 389.
Okay, this is concerning. I mean, in the last 10 minutes, I heard 16 million, 12.1, and 13.5, and 9.5.
Yeah, it's all,
million.
if you're looking at the page, the total project cost is 16 million, but that includes a separate phase that we're not discussing in relation to this funding.
Yeah, but I don't think the total cost is 16 million. Could we have some full accounting of this? And when are the bids expected? When is it being bid out? Please.
It's more or less ready to go to procurement. I don't have the actual when the bids will be submitted or will be put on the street. I could speak with Brian Snyder to see if I can get a clear understanding of that. It's in the pipeline for bidding.
Yeah, because the delay, I'm sure, is part of the increase. Alderwoman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you. the broader question is the schedule for completion. You know, the budget projects out to 2023, I believe. And so I guess for City Manager Gerald, do we have a schedule other than what's proposed in the CIP as to how long this will take, and thus how much time we have to make sure that we have adequate funding for the project?
Are you talking about the compromise? So there's two completely separate projects here. There's the Compromise Street side, which is what most of this discussion is about and what this grant is to be used for. And then there's the Dock Street side, which is part of the whole revitalization, CDOC Action Committee, you know, that whole process.
I'm referring to Compromise Street.
Yeah, so
right now.
It sounds like we're ready to shortly to put that out for bids. Maybe Director Johnson can address what the length of that project is.
Yes,
I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Based on the engineer's schedule that they provided, it's around a 23-month construction period.
So that'll take us into 2023.
That'll take us into fiscal year. You know, depending on when it starts, right? It will be a 23-month, and you know, it's a 23-month period for the actual construction for phase 1, which is what we're speaking about here.
Okay. Thank you. My other questions were answered, I think, in the form of the discussion. So Madam Chair, we have a motion. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, we do. But I do want to just one point.
I'm sorry. No, you don't.
We didn't move. Yeah, we didn't move yet. Just one quick question, and it's pretty simple. Assuming the project is $13.5 million, how much of this revenue is secured funds at this point?
Is that for Judy? I'm not sure what do you mean by secured funds?
Secured revenue that we're getting.
Well, maybe Jody could answer.
And I think we need to split these projects up. I know that's not.
Yeah. I'm only going to be addressing the compromise side.
Okay.
And I am going to confirm this. I believe we have the funding for the project lined up, but I want to check with Dave Mandel about the state piece because I think that was coming in chunks. And I don't know if all of that has been formally awarded to us.
I can speak to that. We have gotten $3.1 million from the Maryland Department of the Environment awarded, 3.1 in total. They have budgeted in their processes an additional, off the top of my head, I think it's 2.4 million. Is it 2.4? I think so. But budgeting at the department level is different from a past budget at the General Assembly level, as you all know. So they're anticipating giving us that additional 2.4, but that has not been awarded yet.
The reason
that may be in FY23. I think that's what our discussion was. They may not award it until the FY23 budget.
Right.
And the funding will be split, but you know,
that's what I'm getting at. Do we have enough funds to start the project? Director Johnson.
I believe we do, Madam Chair, based on the analysis that was done. There is I think it was a bond bill that was granted for $2 million. And once those monies are forwarded to the city, it appears that we would have enough money to bid the project. We would not bid it if we do not have adequate funding. We would not be permitted
just to be perfectly clear, normally both the feds and the state do not forward you money before you start the project. They pay you on a reimbursable basis. Mm-hmm. So you pay the contractor, you submit the invoice that you paid the contractor to the state or the Fed, and then they reimburse. So we don't actually hold the money. What we have is approved grants for all of these from from both FEMA and from the state. So for example, the first state money that we got for this was $1 million back in the days when Dave Mandel was talking about. And that's what we used for the design.
Design, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so we used $1 million for design and we got reimbursed as we paid AECom to do the work. So they don't give you the money up front. You get reimbursed as you pay out money for the project.
Okay. But before I present a motion, could I just ask that this item be on our next agenda and that we get a full accounting of the funds secured and perhaps a date when the project will start, just so there, I just sense that there's some exposure on this project. With that, I make a motion that we do approve this, that we recommend
Madam
approval.
Chair, I'll be glad to make the motion to give a favorable recommendation to SA 1622.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Madam Chair, I would like to reiterate if we could get an accounting of funds allocated, well, funds received, funds proposed, and funds already allocated for this project.
Yeah.
So I think that would be helpful for us.
Yes. And I'd also like it clarified, if possible, in the capital budget that it be called the Compromise Street project. Just for clarification on where, so we don't get commingle, for lack of a better word, the resiliency fund part of this. Okay, next. SA 17-22 is another grant funding, Harbor Master from DNR. Did we lose Beth Bellis on this?
Director Trader is here.
Director Trader, are you able to speak to the supplemental allocation which appropriates money from DNR for the pump out boat? Director Trader, or let's see, is Kyle here? Or Director Dickinson, my understanding is that it is for the pump out boat.
Yeah, they have grants every year, and this is an additional $26,750 that they got from Maryland DNR for that grant. So it's an existing grant. They got some additional funding.
Congratulations to Beth Bellis if she's listening. I'm sure she was responsible for this.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation for SA 1722.
I will second that motion. All in favor of a favorable recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, time check. It's almost 12 o'clock. We have about a half hour, but we do have a fund transfer and then a report by the director. So just to be cognizant of the time. FT 3-22 is the next item on the agenda. It is a transfer. My understanding is it is a transfer from our contingency fund, and these expenses are due to the tornado, which I don't believe it says, but that is my understanding. Director Dickinson, would you care to elaborate?
Yes. Yes. So when we set up the budget, we establish an account in the finance non-allocated budget for contingencies. And those are appropriations to be used for things like big snow events, unexpected storms, that kind of thing. So in September, as you know, we had the tornado, which was a result of Tropical Storm Ida. And that is in the description there. It talks about caused by Tropical Storm Ida. It's the tornado that was caused by the tropical storm. And so we, as you know, had several days of a cost involved with, helping the citizens, picking up the trees, the branches, helping get the trees out of the roadway, that kind of thing. So all kinds of work that was involved with the community there. And we incurred some overtime in several different offices. As you can see, OEM, fire, police, planning and zoning, and DPW all had some significant costs. So what we're asking here is to transfer from the contingency account $72,650 and move it to the budgets of these departments that incurred these expenses. And we spent more time than this, but we're only reimbursing for overtime, the FICA that we pay on overtime supplies and contractual services that we incurred that would have been in addition to what's already in our budget.
I have a question. On the tornado, I understand that the governor eventually declared a state of emergency or did not declare a state of emergency. I'm getting at why.
Yeah, that's not a question for me. Somebody else can answer that one.
Yeah, because I would think that these funds that state of emergency would release funds to us for this instead of us taking it out of our own contingency. Or is there a potential that we'll get reimbursed for this at a later date? Director Simmons?
To your first question, Madam Chair, he did not declare a state of emergency for the tornado. He did declare a state of emergency for the flooding downtown. So, in my understanding, declaring a state of emergency for the tornado, if that happened, we would have been eligible for the casino disaster funding. But the governor did come back. He dedicated $4 million at first as a loan to folks who needed recovery. And then he came back about a month ago or so, and he turned those loans into grants. So we still have a lot of folks recovering in the parole area. Now they're eligible for these grants, and OEM is working with them, helping them navigate the application process for the grants. So that's an ongoing recovery thing. We're still recovering from that September 1st tornado.
Yeah,
and those grants are going directly to the citizens, not through the city. So
That's
we
correct.
didn't get any funding from the state or the federal government to reimburse us for the costs that we incurred.
But we approved some grants at the last city council meeting for those.
So my understanding with that is for the businesses to get the grants, the council had to do a resolution.
Correct.
And based on that resolution, they could receive the state funds for that grant. And the funds are coming from the Department of Housing and Community Development at the state level.
But not going through the city. We just had to get the approval of council to allow the businesses to get the grants.
Directly. Okay. And so there's no chance that we'll be getting any reimbursement for this?
No, ma'am. We're not.
Okay. Oh, Ms. Connolly, did you have your hand up?
No, I was just gonna say the same thing that Director Simmons said.
Okay.
And we give you, in the description here, we give you the remaining contingency account after this is granted would be $258,850. And as you know, we're in the midst of winter. And so some of that may be, if we have any other big storms, we may be tapping into that for other winter storms.
Could I also add to the agenda next time a full accounting of our contingency account at that time, not today?
Okay, if you want, we can do it in the finance committee meeting. Katie can throw it together pretty quickly and just send it out in an email of the things that we've used it for. Not very many, just a couple to get different things and show you what we've tapped it for.
Thank you very, very much. I'll entertain a motion then to do a favorable recommendation for FT 3-22.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of a favorable recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And thank you, Director Simmons, for all your hard work and all of our public safety departments for this and everyone listed here. You can see, oh my gosh, it was such a city effort. Thank you so much. Okay, last but not least is an update from our finance director, Ms. Dickinson. Take as much time as you need.
It's just my list of things we're working on here in finance to give to you. We are working to get the annual financial report for FY21 out. It's, as you know, it's quite a book that's created. We're almost done with the draft. The auditors are not done with their process yet. So we had an extension to January 31. I'm not sure how, if we're probably going to have to go in February. I don't know how far we're going to have to go into February till they can complete their audit procedures and their review. My assistant finance director, Julie Donnelly, is working on that, helping incredibly pull that together. So I just have a reviewing role, which is one of the things they commented on last year, that I needed to be in more of a reviewing role than a preparation role. So that's really helped. We are working on the budgets. I'm sorry.
Going back to that, the acronym has changed.
So it used to be CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, but that everybody called it CAFR, and they said that sounds too much like a derogatory term. So so they've changed it to the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. So it's ACFR now. So we'll be calling it the ACFR, and I hope I don't slip up every once in a while and go back to my decades of calling it the CAFR, but
at least we'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And just,
so it is the ACFR now. I wish they would have made it something totally different, because it's too close to what it was, and it's easy to mix them up.
Could I ask, in memory of Alderman Frederick, that my colleagues get a hard copy of that, if possible?
Yeah, and yeah, we don't have them yet. We don't have them yet. We've drafted the report. It's got to get the audit report done before we can publish it.
Right. Thank you so much. I'm still dog ear and all that good stuff. So.
Oh no, I work with my hard copies a lot too. So I guess you're not the only one who likes to work with the physical book.
Thank you.
The budget, Katie's gotten trained the departments on how to enter the budget into OpenGov. Last Friday was the initial deadline for the operating budgets to be put into both Munis and OpenGov. We have a few departments that have yet to complete that, and we're working with them to get that entered so that we can draft our first version of the budget, and so we can start going through the requests with them. She's planned meetings with all the departments in February so that we can discuss one-on-one with them and the city manager as to what they're asking for, and to review their supplemental requests.
Was there a reason for their delay in not meeting the budget? I mean, meeting the deadline?
I think it's just, well, there are a couple things. One, I'm sure everybody's very busy, and we've asked them to put it into 2 systems this year, Munis, which they always did, and we had a training on OpenGov and asked them to put it into both. And we're under a little bit of a time crunch this year, because we did not get the budget instructions out till early December. I think maybe the second week of December. So, you know, we are a little behind, and it's a crunch for the departments as well. And so we're going to be working with them over the next couple of days and hopefully have everything pulled together. We're working, as you know, the union negotiations. Did somebody have something to say? I thought I heard somebody speak. Union negotiations, I have a lot of economic analysis I have to do for the union negotiations, and then we'll be setting up meetings in February for that. That's going to take a significant amount of time. We are trying to finalize the concession agreement for the AMRP Hillman project. That's taking a significant amount of time, and we're just getting a pretty good draft of the concession agreement, although we don't have a fully drafted one yet. So that's been taking a lot of our time, and as you know, we're now looking at a March date for a demolition of the garage, because we just don't have this agreement in a place where it should be. So many of us have been working on that, myself and the city manager and Eileen. She's been helping us with that project too. So we've got a team on it, and it's taking a bit of time. I have this month I've had to be working on the final CARES grant report that timed out in December. So we filed the final report with the county and have successfully utilized all those funds.
Is that the 4 million? I'm sorry, just for clarification.
4.9 million total with all three pieces that came to us, 4.9 million. I also, January 31 is also the deadline for the next ARPA filing. So I have to pull that together. That's a two-step process. You have to analyze your revenue shortfalls and then you file the report. So I have to do that sometime in the next 10 days or so. We are also working on an RFP for audit services. We've got a good draft of that, and I've got to find time to finalize that draft and then get it to the audit committee for review. And the only other major thing we're working on here is staffing. The procurement officer position is still vacant. Well, not vacant. Brian Snyder has agreed to stay on until the summer, until we can find a replacement. He would like to retire, and so we've got that position open until filled, and we're looking at applications on a regular basis. We had a candidate. We were not able to. She did not accept our offer, so we were back at the start. We have an AP clerk position that's vacant, but we've got a temp in there right now, and that's working out pretty well. So probably going to work with the temp and then maybe try to do that contractually until we are ready to advertise. We tried to advertise that once, and we did not get a successful candidate that would accept our offer. So, so we decided to go with the temp solution. We have a vacant accountant. We have a vacant accountant position for grants, and she gave her notice in December, and she's just recently had her last date. Neehan Hertez was her name, and we've advertised for that. We're looking at applicants right now. Again, not a lot. It's not like it used to be where you get a lot of applications. It's been very, very competitive out there, and it's being hard to recruit successful candidates. We've advertised for, and the fourth thing is we've advertised for contractual budget analysts to help Katie during the budget process, so that we just bring them on for the next couple months, ideally through 6 months to the budget process till it's finished, and then release the contractual position. So we're looking at applicants for that as well, and so that staffing continues to be an issue that we are faced with here. That's the end of what I have. I see that Alderwoman Finlayson has her hand up.
Yeah, Alderwoman Finlayson.
Thank you. Putting my hand down and unmuting. A few questions, and maybe this first question should be to you, Ms. Dickinson, but also City Manager Gerald. Referring to the contract for the garage, I know that has been delayed. I would like to know the status of the minority participation that's being required of the developer. And I use the terminology deliberately because my hope is that there is a requirement for minority participation at every level of this construction.
City project, man.
Mr. Trader, you're not muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
Unless you want to share with all of us, I mean, you know.
I apologize.
Yeah, I can address that, Alderwoman Finlayson. So we have a very robust requirement. Whiting Turner's our design builder, and they have a lot of experience. And they've been aggressively meeting with minority businesses basically through this whole process for the garage. Because you have to bring them on early and make them aware of the project and include them in the process so that they will then be interested in bidding when it's time for them to get their subcontract bids. So all that's been done. It's going to be an open book process when they bid this. So we will be able to look at the bids, and if there's a minority contractor that's slightly higher than maybe the low bid, we can still choose them because of the benefits of having participation by minority businesses. So that will be a very robust process and has been all along. Just to add one more data point to this, we're scheduling a special council work session next week, Thursday, just to have a discussion of the concession agreement and things like this, as well as all the other factors. If we're still in active negotiation, it may be an executive session. If we complete the negotiations, then it will be an open meeting, just to sort of set the stage for that.
Well, thank you. And I know, I hope everyone very much appreciates the fact that there's going to be a meeting with us to update us on the details. I think several of us who were at the FAC last week were kind of surprised to hear some of the information we learned, which was why I had asked for a briefing today during the Finance Committee meeting. So anyway, thank you very much for that. My second question deals with the Procurement Officer. As well as other positions, Ms. Dickinson, that you're trying to fill. Are our salaries commensurate with surrounding jurisdictions? We seem to be having trouble hiring people. Is it the salary? Is it the benefits package? Is it the atmosphere of working in the city of Annapolis? What is our barrier, or what are our barriers to being able to hire good people?
Yeah, so I can't answer that without having the HR manager on. The scales were established by analyzing the positions, and I think they had a firm come in and grade all of the positions and look at the salary levels. And every time we have a cost of living increase, the salary scale shifts with that cost of living increase. So I would say I'm at my level, I don't think it's far off. I can't say for all positions because I don't know how the market works with everything. But in the accounting, I don't think we're that far off. One of the things that we found is we're getting people applying that have a lot of years of experience. And when they do, they want higher salaries. So you have to take them to higher on the scale. And that's where we have the longevity steps. And they have to tell them, you can't have a raise until you've worked here for X number of years. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Nobody has expressly said that's a deterrent to them coming on board. I have successfully gotten people in the door, even though they're at the higher end of the scale. But that may be a barrier to retention. And in the cases where we've had candidates and taken them right down to the wire and they've taken something else, or they decided this wasn't right for them, I don't know what the situation is there. On the AP clerk, it's just been a very competitive market. When we put the accountant position out with the contractual budget analyst, there was, if you looked at Indeed's listing for accountants that same day in the city of Annapolis, there was like 24 accounting jobs open at the same time on the same day. So it's just, there's a lot of people looking for work. And I think that those that are experienced and seeking jobs have their pick of what they want. So a lot of it's the market. I don't think salaries are that far off. And I know I'm just speaking from an accounting perspective. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're that far off.
Do you have flexibility with that?
I have flexibility within the scale. I've got to stick to the longevity requirements, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have to get it approved by the HR manager if I go up into the longevity steps. I have to get approval. So.
And traditionally, do you get that approval?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's just difficult, and you know, I don't know if some of it's due to the working at the city of Annapolis. Nobody said that so far. And sometimes I don't get the reasons.
Okay. And Procurement Officer, again, same question, I guess. Salaries, You know,
So
what is it?
I haven't done a study of what other procurement officers are making, and it would have to be particular to government. I think we'd have to analyze it compared to other governments. And maybe Mr. Snyder would have a better idea of what the comparable salaries are at other governments. I think it's competitive, but again, if you're going to try to woo somebody away from another job where they're already making a good salary, or they're retiring in their current job and looking for another position, then you're going to get highly skilled people with a lot of years. And they may just hold out and wait for something that can pay them better.
My last question, and I don't mean to belabor this, but it's important. Manager Gerald, are we rewriting the role and responsibilities for the procurement officer or the department? Or am I imagining this?
I think the description is accurate. And I think it went through a few little edits a couple of years ago, but other than that, it's right. It's spot on with what it needs to be.
Well, we seem to have had the responsibility squarely on the shoulders of one person. And over the years, we had said we need to duplicate him so that he can, deal with all the things that's on his plate. Are we looking for someone to do what he's done solely, or are we dividing those authorities? Or because I thought there was discussion about redoing the Office of Procurement, period.
Yeah, Alderwoman Finlayson, what we did and what you're recalling is that we upgraded the number 2 in procurement so that it would be more of an assistant procurement that would eventually be able to move up and maybe be the future as a succession plan. So I think that's probably what you were thinking about. Remember, we bumped up the grade a little bit a few years ago, and it took a while to get that done. But after one of the long-term employees left and retired, we took that position and upgraded it. So that's in place.
Okay. So hopefully that will help in the
future.
So thank you.
Is that a procurement officer 2 that it's advertised as? Or
no, we have we have a procurement officer who is the lead of the department. We have a buyer, and I think it may be a buyer 1 and a buyer 2, or a buyer and a senior buyer.
Okay.
That type
yeah.
of station.
It's interesting because I just did a procurement job Google search government, and first that came up is MDOT for procurement 2 with a salary of $54,800 to $89,700, and then there's 100 other opportunities. So we have to separate ourselves out.
I'm not surprised. And government procurement is a specialty, and it's best to find somebody who's doing that job in another government that's ready to move up and take the lead position in another government. But, for whatever reason, they're just not willing to leave where they are, or there's so many openings out there that they have their pick.
Yeah, I see even our friends CBRE have opening for a procurement specialist. Speaking of which, City Manager Gerald, it's out there, the delay of the garage, 4-month delay, et cetera, et cetera. So, everybody's sort of, and I'm sure you as well, very worried about this, but can you assure us that CBRE is working in our interest to make sure that this concession agreement is signed and works for our benefit?
They are. So they're looking at all the financial terms of the agreement. We also hired an outside law firm to look at all the legal terms, which are where a lot of the complexity is. I mean, what we're talking about is a 30-year agreement for the demolition, the design, the permitting, the construction, the operations and maintenance of a garage, and financing of a garage. So it's a complex deal that we haven't done before. We haven't done a P3 before in the city. So we're using CBRE and an outside attorney both to advise us, to review the documents and then to help with the negotiations with AMRP.
And so this is one umbrella agreement, I mean, for like 10 10 entities, or, I mean, I know that you're dealing with about 10 companies under.
Well, it's with the developer. So it's with Hunt / Amber Infrastructure. They're the lead. Yeah. MRP is the whole group, but the lead developer is Hunt Companies and Amber Infrastructure, which is all the same company. Amber Infrastructure is just a subsidiary of Hunt.
So our executed agreement will be with Hunt or? No. Okay.
Hunt / Amber Infrastructure. It's all the same company. That's just, they're just a subsidiary.
And to circle back to Alderwoman Finlayson's question about minority participation, usually that's in a general contractor's contract, with Whiting Turner, and Whiting Turner has a 15% minority. How do we ensure that that language could get into their contract so that we have minority participation?
Right. So
are we in control of that?
Yeah, there's a design build contract that Hunt and Amber Infrastructure will do with Whiting Turner for the project. Whiting Turner's their design builder, so the contract will be between them, but they'll have all of those minority contracting goals in that contract.
Okay, and I'm sure my colleague will want to see that when the time comes. Alderwoman Finlayson, you have your hand up again.
Yes, and I'm trying to think of what my next question was going to be. I'll have to come back to it because I was reading something else and forgot what I was going to ask. So sorry.
Okay. Director Dickinson, I'll ask it this way. What keeps you up at 3 in here as far as order of priority? Is the Arpa money, is there some, you said you have to work on that and some deadline there. Is there any exposure there on getting those monies from the federal government, or what do you need to do to ensure that?
So you mean of all the list of things I talked about I was doing? Oh, okay. Well,
I elevated the Arpa money.
In the next couple of weeks, I have a lot to do, and I'll just have to, the thing that's got a hard deadline is those federal reports. I got to get the Arpa, you have to do a calculation to determine how much revenue, how much lost revenue you can justify, and then file the report saying how much you're going to apply to your organization and what services. So that's a 2-step process. And then I have to do a final report for some CARES funding that came for the ambulance. It's called the Provider Relief Fund, and a piece of the CARES Act monies went through fire for because they do ambulance trips, and they got the money in advance, and we just have to report on how we spent that. So that's the last piece. I have to do that before the end of the month. Other than that, I think that a lot of these things we have intermittent deadlines, like meetings that we're having that I have to prepare things for. So,
okay. It's unfortunate that you're
an urgent thing, but I've got the act for, I have to keep the budget stuff moving along, but Katie's taken a lot of that burden off me. And the union negotiations, this is the first time around for me on something like that. So, that's going to require a lot of my time.
Okay.
So anyways, that's it. And I'd like to get the staffing. I'd like to get full staffing. It's, a dream of mine to have everything fully staffed here, but it just never seems to work. Every time we add something, we have another vacancy.
Let me ask this: because the ARPA effort is taking you away from other stuff, is any of that ARPA money going towards your salary? Or salaries?
No, well, let's just say that the city is using the monies to, no. I mean, we're using it for revenue replacement. So we operate as normal. And if we don't have the revenues we anticipated, we could just use it for operations. And we could say accounting operations if we wanted to, or we could say transportation activities, which is what we used it for in FY21. We could apply it towards fire or police activities if we wanted to. It's we just have to designate what kind of city activity.
But to justify that, those respective departments are recording their time so that can be.
No. When you use it for revenue replacement, you just have to show that the pandemic has decreased your revenue inflow, and they have a very complicated Excel workbook that you have to plug all your numbers into, and then it calculates how much lost revenue you've had, how much revenue you've lost over a period of time. And when I did that a year ago, the number was far greater than what we had to use. It was in several $1 million, and we only had to use $1.1 million for transportation activities. So I'm not really concerned about that, but it's an exercise you have to go through to report.
Doing taxes. Okay, are there any other questions for yes, you remembered.
I remembered my question, and it's for City Manager Gerald. Transportation, funding for transit specifically, as it relates to garage, city dock, the contract with whomever it is that's going to take over our garage. Are we still making sure that there is funding to be allocated for transit? Because normally we take parking revenue and, garage revenue to support transit. Once we no longer have that revenue, I thought the goal was that the company would be giving X number of dollars to assist with transit into the future. Is that still in existence, I guess?
So there's kind of two parts of what the company is going to give us. One is a concession payment, and that would be a one-time payment, part of which is almost certainly going to be used for the city dock, the dock street side, since we talked about the whole project, but the dock street side of the resilience project. And then we'll also get the estimate is about $1 million from them for the surrounding area plus the waterfall from Hillman Garage. So the way that the Hillman Garage is going to work is that they have to cover all of their costs with the revenue that comes in through the garage. As it flows down and covers all those costs, the debt service, the operations, the maintenance, all those costs that they have to cover for 30 years. If there's money left over at the end, then it comes to the city. All of the projections for the garage were very conservative because they had to be for purposes of financing the garage for AMRP. But we think that they're going to be exceeded because they were so conservative, both on the rate side because they couldn't include any rate increase for the garage, and we think that there's some rate increase. Probably not large, but some rate increase we'll be able to do. But also on the demand side, how many cars are going to park there? They were extremely conservative on those. So that waterfall will pay part of it, and then we need to decide how much of the concession payment is going to go to the city dock project, how much of it's going to be kept behind to help fund transit. If we decide for part of it to keep it to help fund transit, it won't be a one-time payment, it'll be a recurring payment. Because one-time payments are pretty restricted on what we can use those for. I think capital only, Director Dickinson can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the typical one-time capital use. But we can convert that concession payment into a recurring payment if we'd like, and then we can get it over time to help support transit. So all those decisions have to be made based on how much money that we get, how much grant money that we get from the state and from the federal government to help pay for the city dock project, and from the Resilience Financing Authority as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces there. It's a jigsaw puzzle that we have to put together to make sure that we can afford both transit and the city dock resilience project.
It makes me very uncomfortable to hear you describe how transit will be funded in the future. I fear greatly that we are setting ourselves up to fund one project over another. And as much as I know that City Dock needs, needs the renovation, I also know that our residents need transit. And I am gonna insist at every opportunity that there be a dedicated funding going to transit. Not something, if we're gonna leave money up in the air, then it should be up in the air for everything. Not funding one project over another. And I'm calling transit a project, even though it's not. But I hear City Dock, City Dock, City Dock. I don't hear transit, transit, transit. And I want that to stay in the front of all of us because that impacts all of us. And so just like we are assured that the funding is gonna come to repair City Dock, I wanna make sure that the funding also comes to maintain.
Your time later on. I just want to show you something.
Okay, sure.
Archie, you still are not muted. Thank you. So I just want to make sure, I'm going to keep it out there that we need funding for transit. And that cannot be on.
Yeah, if we could just keep in mind a couple of things. One is that transit doesn't pay for itself. I think we all know that. Transit is subsidized by our parking fund. If the parking fund isn't adequate, the general fund is going to pay for transit. So transit's going to be paid for one way or the other. It's just a matter of whether parking can continue to subsidize transit or it would be the general fund that would subsidize transit. That's not an appealing choice to have the general fund. That's what it has done in the past. It hasn't been done for a number of years because the parking fund's been used for that purpose. But either way, transit is going to be funded. It's just a matter of what the source is. And I think that was the point that you were trying to make is we're going to have a source for it. It's just either going to be the parking fund as it is today, if we can get enough revenue out of the parking fund, or it's going to be the general fund, which is going to be another burden on the general fund.
May I ask?
Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask City Manager, just based on what my colleague said, the City Dock project is to prevent a catastrophic event, basically. I mean, eventually, the worst case, sea level rise, etc. I think we're going to get that response if we don't stress the importance of that. And when the budget allocation comes, is there a way of when we estimate that project that we have really two estimates, one for the infrastructure, what the infrastructure project, which will prevent the flooding or anything affiliated with the flooding, and then the other part being the improvement. I don't want, when you say City Dock project, I don't want people to think, I know this is out of our league here now, but Alderwoman Finlayson brought it up. When people say City Dock project, I don't want them to think that it's a green space, and that's what we're doing. We're putting in a park. There's essential infrastructure that we're putting in. And if worst case, you always plan for worst case, if we don't have the funds to complete the project, we should have the budget or the project set up so that we're able to do that infrastructure part first, funding to coordinate with the funding. I say that because we have been given presentation of the project divided up in chunks. And I'm just for future, just for the future, because I know that's going to come up and that we should have the budget set up that way.
Please,
I guess I would just say that.
Please don't misunderstand me.
No, I know other people think.
No, because I just heard what you said. And I am not diminishing the significance, the importance of the work at City Dock. I am saying I don't want it to be pitted against transit. We have to find a way to do both. That's my point. So I don't want it heard that I'm opposed to the City Dock, because that's not the case at all.
Right.
Okay, so let's be clear about that.
I understand. I think I totally agree with you, and I'm trying to find a way that both can be done. If that's all, financially.
I guess my fear in thinking that way is that we all know how water flows and it finds a low spot. And if we have walls 3/4 of the way around and don't for the last quarter, it's still going to flood.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. It floods just as efficiently with 1/4 not covered as it does uncovered.
Right.
So we just, I mean, it's a project that we need to do all the way around, including in front of the businesses over there.
I totally get, I understand that part.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I know you do, but it's hard to say, look at the plan that goes all the way around Eagle Alley and just do a part of it.
Right.
Or just do a phasing. I mean, we are phasing the compromised street side first, but we need to do all the way around.
Right. I'm just to accomplish Alderwoman Finlay's concern. I'm just saying, can we save the green space for later? That kind of stuff. This is the frou-frou for lack of a better word. So anyways, well, anyone else? Thank you. I think we're about 8 minutes over. So I'd appreciate a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I second that. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a great meeting.